If an avoidant person wants you in their life for real, maybe even for the long run, do not expect fireworks. Do not expect a huge confession, a dramatic speech, or some movie scene where everything becomes clear in one night. It usually comes in a much quieter way. So quiet that most people miss it and walk away right before the truth shows up. That is why this matters, because when an avoidant loves deeply, the signs are not loud. They are small, precise, costly, and very real. They let you in little by little, they stay a little longer, they soften in moments where they used to shut down, they start choosing connection when every old part of them wants to run. And if you know what to look for, you will see that these small changes are not random at all. They are huge. Stay with me, because this is where most people get it wrong. They think love only counts when it is obvious. But with an avoidant, love often arrives in silence first, then in trust, then in presence, and only after that in words. And once you understand that, everything changes, because what looks slow may actually be serious. What looks careful may actually be deep. And what looks quiet may be the clearest sign that this person is not playing with you at all. They are deciding very carefully whether to let you become part of their world for good. An avoidant person lives with a strong inner guard. Vulnerability does not feel sweet to them at first. It feels risky. Exposure feels dangerous. Getting attached can feel like losing control. And losing control can feel like losing everything. So when they start showing you who they really are beneath the calm face they show the world, you are watching something brave happen in real time. Not the polished version, not the controlled version, the real one, the tired one, the uncertain one, the part they usually keep hidden. That matters more than most people realize. They are not just falling the way people casually say it. For them, this is often a decision, a slow, serious choice to risk something that has hurt them before. And that choice shows up in very small moments. They stay in conversations they would have once escaped. Their body relaxes near you. Their eyes look less guarded and more open, almost like they are searching for something safe inside your presence. They are not wasting time. They are studying whether you are someone who can hold the parts of them they had to protect for years. That is the real process, not fast passion, not quick attachment, careful trust. And if you miss how important that is, you will misread the whole connection. Because with an avoidant, the beginning of deep love is often not intensity. It is willingness, quiet willingness. And that may be one of the rarest things they ever give. In the beginning, their walls do not come down because of one perfect sentence or one grand gesture. They come down because of what they feel around you over time. Safety, steadiness, no pressure, no emotional chasing, no attempt to force them open before they are ready. You are not trying to fix them. You are not demanding instant closeness. You are simply there, clear and grounded, and that reaches them more than people know. Avoidant people respond deeply to emotional safety, not emotional force. When they feel that safety again and again, something starts to shift. They ask more personal questions, not for fun, not to pass time. They are building an internal picture of you. They remember little things you said weeks ago. They send a random message in the middle of the day because reaching out suddenly feels less dangerous than before. And here is where most people make the mistake. They read the slow pace as disinterest, but for an avoidant, slow is often how trust is made. Every step forward costs them something. Every small truth they share is a piece of armor they are putting down by hand. So when they admit fear, when they mention an old wound, when they let you see a crack in their image, do not treat it lightly. That is intimacy in their language. That is their way of saying, you matter enough for me to risk being known. And that is not small, that is huge. Watch that closely, because this next layer says even more. What is happening inside them at that point is deeper than simple attraction. Avoidant people often carry a fear of being consumed by closeness, of losing their freedom, of being pulled so far into a relationship that they cannot hear themselves anymore. So when they begin opening that door, even a little, they are not just liking you more. They are rewriting old survival patterns. Their nervous system is learning something new. It is learning that love does not always equal pressure, that closeness does not always mean suffocation, that another person can come near without taking over. You are seeing healing happen through experience, not theory. And that is why you cannot treat their small emotional openings like casual moments. When they confess something hard, laugh without guarding themselves, sit in silence without trying to perform, or stay present in a difficult moment instead of leaving, those moments are sacred. You are not just included in their day. You are being invited into a private world they kept locked for a long time. For an avoidant, love is rarely proven through speeches. It is proven through permission, through access, through the simple fact that they stop preparing their exit every second they are with you. So if their defenses are softening, do not rush in and ask for more than they are ready to give. Do not force the timeline. Do not call the pace weak, because what you are witnessing may be the beginning of something they once believed they could never do. And when an avoidant truly lets you see them, you are not only loved, you are chosen on purpose. Another sign almost no one notices is this: they begin to mirror your energy, not as a trick, not as a strategy, not because they are trying to charm you. It happens because their system is starting to settle around yours. Their tone matches your calm. Their pace starts syncing with yours. The emotional rhythm between you feels smoother, less forced, more natural. That is not random. That is the body speaking before the mind finds the words. In psychology, mirroring is often a quiet form of bonding. We reflect the people we feel safe with. So when an avoidant starts doing this, it means something important has changed. You are no longer being read as a possible threat to their peace. You are becoming part of their peace. Early on, avoidant people can seem polite, steady, and even consistent, but emotionally flat. They are still studying the field. They are still deciding whether your presence brings calm or chaos. But once they feel safe, the tone changes. Their messages begin to match your emotional warmth. Their timing starts to feel more connected. They respond with a kind of ease that was not there before. And this is where people sometimes misunderstand the whole thing. They think the avoidant is just copying behavior. But deeper mirroring is not fake. It is subconscious. It is attachment beginning to move from distance into participation. It is the heart saying, in the quietest way possible, I am starting to let this in. Stay with that, because the deeper reason behind it matters even more. What drives that mirroring is not just emotion. It is also the nervous system. When real attachment forms, their brain begins learning safety through your presence. That is why your energy matters so much more than clever words or big speeches. Avoidant people usually do not respond well to emotional pressure. They respond to emotional consistency. When you are grounded, when you stay honest without becoming dramatic, when you set a boundary without turning it into a war, they notice more than they say. When you stop chasing, they often stop retreating. When you speak with respect, their defensiveness slowly lowers. When you remain steady in the middle of uncertainty, you become proof that love does not always arrive with chaos attached to it. And this is the paradox. They often want love as deeply as anyone else, but they fear it more than most people ever see. So when your calm starts to become their calm, when your peace starts teaching their system how to rest, the connection changes shape. It stops feeling like danger and starts feeling like relief. That is when you see real availability. They remember details. They ask how your day really was. They engage with presence, not obligation. They stop standing outside the relationship and start stepping into it. And if you ever notice an avoidant matching your patience, your steadiness, your way of carrying yourself through life, do not dismiss it. That is not imitation. That is transformation. And it often means they are learning a new meaning of love while standing right beside you. Then there is silence. And this is where many people panic too early. In the early stage, when an avoidant goes quiet, it can be a defense. They step back because emotion gets loud inside them. They pull away because closeness activates fears they do not know how to handle yet. It is not always because they do not care. Sometimes it is because they care in a way that scares them. Distance becomes a quick way to lower the inner pressure. But when love gets deeper, the meaning of that silence can change. It stops being pure escape and starts becoming reflection. That difference is everything. They are not necessarily running from you. They are trying to understand what you mean to them and what they feel inside a connection that is no longer easy to dismiss. For many avoidant people, solitude has always been the only place where they could think clearly without feeling emotionally flooded. So when feelings grow, they still process in private. But now the silence is not empty. It is full of sorting, feeling, recalibrating. And most people miss that. They take it personally. They assume the worst. But when an avoidant who truly cares goes quiet, it may not be indifference at all. It may be contemplation. It may be the sound of someone trying to organize their inner world into something they can actually bring back to you with honesty. This part matters, so do not skip it. Sometimes the quiet is not the end of connection. Sometimes it is the place where connection finally becomes real enough to scare them and important enough to keep. If vulnerability feels like a flood to them, then space is how they come up for air. And that means patience is not passive here. Patience is one of the strongest messages you can send. When you do not chase them in panic, when you do not punish every pause, when you let stillness exist without filling it with fear, you create the exact conditions they need to find clarity. That stillness becomes permission, and the more safe and steady you remain during those moments, the more likely they are to return with intention instead of more distance. Not because you wore them down, not because you proved yourself enough, but because your consistency taught their nervous system that closeness with you does not have to become emotional chaos. You become an anchor instead of another storm. And when they do come back, notice the difference. There is often more softness in their voice, more depth in their presence, more honesty than before. They went inward, met something uncomfortable, and chose to return instead of vanish for good. That is growth. That is movement. That is the shift from running to relating. Over time, this is how avoidance starts turning into real commitment. They do not take space to get away from the relationship. They take space so they can reconnect with themselves and come back more fully. They begin learning that solitude and intimacy do not have to destroy each other. They can exist together. And that is how an avoidant slowly builds the ability to love someone in a lasting way. Not through nonstop closeness, but through conscious return. That is the part many people never understand, and it changes everything once you do. There is something deeply important in that return. Their silence, which once felt like distance, starts becoming a place where they realize what your presence means. It becomes the place where they miss you without wanting to admit how much. The place where your absence stops feeling like relief and starts feeling like loss. The place where they sit with the empty space and slowly understand that leaving does not actually bring peace anymore. It only delays what their heart already knows. And once that understanding begins, love starts making a different kind of sense to them. So, the next time an avoidant goes quiet, do not rush to label it rejection. Sometimes it is reflection, sometimes it is emotional sorting in the only way they know how. Give them the dignity of space without turning it into punishment. More often than people expect, they return with something deeper than words. They return with presence. They return more aware, more open, more willing to stay in the room emotionally. Even their quiet starts carrying commitment. Their time alone is no longer about escaping the connection. It is about protecting it from the parts of them that still get overwhelmed. Let them breathe. Let them think. Let them come back by choice. Because when they return in that new way, they are not the same person who once ran from closeness. They are becoming someone who can actually hold it. And if you are still here, listen closely, because this next sign may be the clearest one of all. It is the moment their care stops being only inward and starts reaching towards you in a deliberate, protective way. When an avoidant starts protecting your energy, you feel it before you can explain it. It appears in small moments. A gentler tone, a pause before they speak. A choice not to let stress spill onto you the way they once might have. A new awareness of how their words land. That is not control. That is care. And for someone whose whole system used to focus on protecting only themselves, that outward shift is massive. For a long time, love may have felt like danger to them. Connection meant exposure. Exposure meant pain they could not manage. So they built habits around self-protection. But when they begin to love deeply, that instinct does not disappear. It changes direction. The same awareness once used to keep others out now starts being used to protect what exists between you. They think ahead. They consider how something will affect you. They stop and ask, maybe for the first time, how will this land for them? That question sounds simple, but it marks a huge internal change. It means they are starting to take emotional responsibility instead of hiding behind distance, detachment, or sarcasm. This is the move from survival into stewardship. They stop seeing love as something that might destroy them and start treating it as something worth caring for. You may notice it when they choose softness over winning an argument, when they stay calm because you are overwhelmed, when they hold back a cold reaction, because peace with you matters more than being right for one moment. Their version of I love you is often this: I do not want to hurt you. And that is one of the clearest forms of devotion an avoidant can give. That change touches their identity too. Many avoidant people build their whole sense of safety around independence. The quiet belief underneath everything is often, I do not need anyone. I can handle my life alone. That belief once protected them. It gave them structure. It gave them control. But when safe love enters the picture, that sentence starts to change. Not into weakness, not into dependence, into something much more mature. It becomes, I do not need anyone, but I truly want you here. And the distance between those two truths is enormous. For them, relationships once meant losing space, losing freedom, losing the parts of themselves they worked hard to keep. So they learned to treat emotional distance like strength. Then someone comes along who does not chase, does not smother, does not demand instant closeness, and suddenly being near this person does not feel like disappearing. It feels like being understood without being swallowed. That is when the rebuilding begins. Their life starts reorganizing in quiet ways. They include you in future plans without making a big announcement about it. They start saying we where they once only said I. They soften on things that used to feel untouchable. They make room, real room, not because they are losing themselves, but because they are learning that autonomy and love can stand side by side. That is integration. That is emotional growth. And when an avoidant starts building a future around you without acting like they are being forced into it, that is not casual interest. That is permanence slowly taking shape. The deeper this shift goes, the more visible it becomes in everyday life. They start showing effort without being pushed. They communicate a little more clearly. They stay in hard conversations a little longer. They check in after tension instead of pretending nothing happened. They let you see bad days, not just controlled days. They invite you into routines that once felt private. They ask what you think before making a decision that affects both of you. They remember what overwhelms you and try not to add to it. They may not become overly expressive overnight, but there is movement, and the movement is real. Even biologically, when trust grows, closeness can begin to feel safer to them. Fear does not vanish, but it stops ruling every choice. They learn to remain present even while uncomfortable, and that may be the biggest sign of all. Not perfection, not non-stop romance, presence, choice, return, repair. They begin to understand that connection is not weakness, it is expansion. It does not erase who they are. It gives who they are more room to breathe. So if you are with someone who used to keep one foot out the door, but now stays, listens, adjusts, remembers, protects, and returns, pay attention. Those are not tiny things. Those are building blocks. That is how an avoidant loves when it is real. Not always with dramatic words, not always in flashy ways, but in the repeated decision to remain emotionally present even when every old habit tells them to retreat. And that kind of love, quiet as it may be, can become very strong. So if you are trying to understand whether an avoidant wants you deeply and for the long term, look beyond noise. Look beyond speed. Look beyond the kind of love that performs itself for attention. Watch for the softer signs, the way they let you in, the way they match your calm, the way their silence starts feeling more thoughtful than distant, the way they protect your peace, the way they begin making room for you inside a life that used to be arranged around distance alone. That is where the truth usually is. And no, it may not look dramatic, but deep love rarely needs to scream when it is real. Sometimes it arrives as a hand lowering its guard, as a message sent without fear, as a return after silence with more honesty than before, as a person who once ran from closeness deciding again and again to stay. That is the part people overlook. They think forever should feel loud, but for an avoidant, forever often begins quietly, in one honest moment, then another, until one day you realize they are no longer just visiting the connection. They are living in it with you, and if this is what you are seeing, do not break it by forcing it into a shape that only fear understands. Let it grow, let it breathe, let it become what it is becoming. Because when an avoidant truly loves, they do not just open up. They rebuild their whole relationship with love itself. And if they are doing that with you, then what you are being given is rare, deliberate, and very real.